I think the thing that sticks out, it's more of a commentary, as I asked the social media person, and she's seen a lot of growth with us on TikTok, which obviously is very youth oriented. She said one of her favorite comments was, she talked to a fan and she said, "Why do you like the band?" And she said, "Because other people told me not to like the band."
Hey friends, it's your girl Emily Curl, and today we're hanging out with Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins. Billy, it's so good to see you. We're so excited to be here. Let's start with Autumn, the new album, 33-track, 3-act rock opera album. Tell us a little bit about the concept behind it.
Well, because it's a act 33 song rock opera, the concept's kind of convoluted, but it essentially starts with an artist in the near future who's been exiled into space. He's seen as a danger to whoever runs the world. Nothing particular other than he sort of presents a threat just because of who he is and what he's capable of saying. And so in the future, they put artists like himself up into the space where he can just comfortably live out his years without causing any trouble. So that's the beginning of the musical. People think it's about cancel culture, but it's really not about cancel culture. It's about a host of other things.
Oh, interesting. What are the other things, the ones that you just mentioned?
It has more to do with an artist's relationship to his work and how over time those perceptions changed, and then how responsible is that artist to other people's perceptions of the work.
In terms of yourself, again, personal interview, like how do you feel? What is your perception of your work? Again, thinking about the Smashing Pumpkins, the legacy, the albums that you've had, when you look back and you think about creating new music, what comes to mind for you?
Well, we've never been a band that got like great reviews. Even when we were very successful in the 90s, it was always pushing against some sort of tide. So we kind of internalized it to the point where we weren't looking outward for other people's approval. And as our music got darker, stranger, it almost seemed to confirm what people thought about us, but it wasn't a reaction so much to what they were saying as much as it was our way of dealing with, well, if you're not going to understand, then we're not going to try to help you understand, right? So we went off on a different type of journey. So I feel pretty good about it in the sense that, the albums that are strong albums have over time grown in stature. And then other albums, which at the time were considered missteps or career suicide, that was always one that was thrown around a lot. Even those albums have really come up over time, and the streaming services indicate, we get to see the numbers. You see where particularly young people are finding our music, and they don't have any of those old attachments to who we are, what we're supposed to be. So in many ways, the band is having this renaissance because I think a younger generation is finding the band saying, who's this band with all this music?
That's so interesting. It's cool when you see that. Is there anything that like the younger generation is latching onto that maybe like the past generations haven't, that surprised you?
I think the thing that sticks out, it's more of a commentary, as I asked the social media person that works with us and who is a big fan that I brought in to run our social media because I felt she understood our world better than some of you would just hire, right? And she's seen a lot of growth with us on TikTok, which obviously is very youth oriented. She said one of her favorite comments was, she talked to a fan and she said, "Why do you like the band?" And she said, "Because other people told me not to like the band." That's kind of the way I am. If I read a really bad movie review, I'll go out of my way to see the movie. And 8 times out of 10, it's actually a really good movie. And it's because somebody has a bone to pick or the movie's out of time. Culture operates in all these kind of undercurrents, and alternative music by and large is supposed to be counter to the mainstream culture. But when you interface with mainstream culture, they go, "Oh my God, what is this weird thing you've done?" Siamese Dream, which is one of our most highly regarded albums, at the time it came out in 1993, got a horrible review in Rolling Stone, said it was way overproduced, harkening back to an era of rock that was dead and all this stuff. Nobody says that now, so was that person right, or were we right by kind of picking where the culture was going? That's what's always difficult about making art, is it's not always for everyone in that moment.
Right. So for this new project then, like how do you go about approaching songwriting? And has it been different, maybe even the process from these other albums?
It was definitely different because you are always adherent to the narrative, because there is this very convoluted narrative. It's always trying to find the balance between just writing a good song that somebody might want to play on the radio versus making something that's really wonky and strange. It tells a good story, but nobody's going to want to listen to it. I'm trying to find that balance. And as soon as you call it a rock opera, you're kind of asking for it, because there aren't a lot of successful rock operas, right? We've learned over time, and me as the sort of main writer is we don't really worry about where the culture is. We try to pick something we really believe in, and if we land it like a gymnast lands a landing, great. And if we don't, well, we know from past experience that it might take 10 to 20 years for people to kind of come around and understand that what we've done, yeah, we understand why it didn't matter in that moment, but over time it's sort of gained stature. And that's happened to us so many times, it's almost part of our business model at this point.
Yeah, I mean, really, I'm just blown away. Like your mind, your creativity. Where do you now at this point? Where do you get your inspiration? What are you watching, reading that's like, evoking these things?
I mostly watch old movies, and I read a lot of books. So when I go into an album cycle like Autumn, I mean, I probably read 50 books to get my mind into a particular space. And then I follow culture because, like I said, this artist is exiled. I don't like the cancel thing because that gets into a different set of dynamics. But I've watched over and over again where artists who have a lot to offer, whether it's the music business or culture, says, oh, you don't have any value anymore. We're just going to kind of push you to the edge of the conversation. And usually because of the way the music business used to work, those artists didn't really have any power. But now with social media and basically peer-to-peer relationships between artists and fans, the artist now has a different power. I think you're starting to see the growth of real artists who can reach people on their own terms. And it's not about being perfect, it's just about the ability to communicate.
That's so interesting. And one thing I think it's so cool you guys are doing is you also have a podcast that's in conjunction with this album. Can you tell me a little bit about the thought process behind that, why you wanted to release it when you did, and walk us through that?
Well, I like the idea of actually explaining the musical. So if you want to, you can hear the podcast, and then when you listen, you can go, okay, that's why this song is so weird. It's making this point, and this character is singing this song. It's given people an appreciation for the depth of the work. And now that it's coming out in full, people are writing me saying, oh, it's really cool. Now I've gone back and listened because I know how the movie ends. Now I can go back to the beginning. And so you're getting that kind of repeat need to kind of reinvigorate the work again and again.
And experience it in a new way.
Yeah, and the other thing is by the end of the 90s, many people said rock had exhausted itself and there wasn't much more to say. Well, here we are 20-something years later. Rock has, in many ways, never been bigger. There are tons of successful large-scale touring acts. The Chili Peppers, Foo Fighters, Green Day, Pearl Jam, just from our generation alone, they're all stadium acts, right? So there's still a lot of energy there.
I mean, speaking of that, you guys are about to hit the stage. You're going on tour, The World is a Vampire Tour. Can you give us a sneak peek into what we can expect from that show?
Well, we've been doing it. We just did it in Mexico and Australia, and we've kind of found this balance of playing new music and then sort of the best of what we've done. It's hard to explain because it's not a greatest hit set and it's not like sort of an arty thing. It's like a weird balancing point where somehow we are able to sum up who the band has been through the different eras, and somehow that movie of the show seems to really resonate with people. I think we released somewhere in the neighborhood of over 300 to 350 songs. So just picking a set list to get it down to 20 is hard, but somehow we seem to have picked the right 20 or so songs where people are very happy with what we're doing.
I'm curious, how do you pick that set list? How do you decide what's going to be on it?
It's a sense of you try to put yourself on stage and you could see yourself playing the song and you could think, okay, this is the one they're going to go buy popcorn at. You know what I mean? It's hard to explain. And there's another song that you go, no, this one they're going to stick around for, maybe even if it's not as good a song. Because there's something about the vibe in this part of the set, like a certain darkness. It's like editing a movie, maybe it's the best analogy. If you watched a movie that only had fight scenes, it would get boring, right? There has to be the boring bits but it has to be the right boring bit.
Now, for some of the newer fans out there, the National Wrestling Alliance, can you explain a little bit of the significance to you and why you chose to bring them on tour? They're going to be a part of your tour, correct?
So I own the oldest wrestling league in the world, 75 years and counting this year, which is pretty crazy. 75 years of continuous operation. So it's kind of the granddaddy of all wrestling organizations. I bought it, it was basically dead. People wrote articles, what are you doing? It's this dead thing. No one cares anymore. And 5 to 6 years later, we brought it back to international prominence. We brought it also to Mexico and Australia with the tour. So what we do is the band will play, and then in that interim where there would just be no, house music, then we just have wrestling in those spaces. So the show keeps going, and then if you want to watch, you can. If you want to go get a popcorn, you can. And what's amazing to us is that most of the people come and surround the ring and enjoy the show and then go back to watch the bands. Somehow it's balancing itself out in a really beautiful way.
And that's not the only special guest that you've sometimes had on stage. Your kids have made an appearance. Are they going to be on the tour? Are they going to make it on stage in one of these shows?
Yes, it's probably breaking some sort of child labor law, but when my children are on the tour, that's part of the family requirement is they have to come out on stage and dance. They were in the video for Beguiled, so we try to have them come out and sort of recreate their dance from the video.
I love it.
My son, as he's gotten a little older, he's less interested in the dancing, but my daughter, you literally have to grab her by the ankles to keep her from being on stage the entire show. I've had great success in life, but being on stage with my children is like, it's a 100 out of 10 type of thing.
Do they have a favorite song of yours?
They really like the Rat in the Cage song. They're big on that one. I'm trying to think what else they like. They like the song that they're in the video for, Beguiled. But there's another one that they really. I think We Only Come Out at Night.
Have they heard the full album, the new one?
They've heard a lot of stuff. They were around for a lot of it. I mean, they'll come when I'm working. They'll just come and be in the room when I'm working. So they're just playing in the corner while I'm like riffing out and stuff. It's just part of their world. And I grew up. My father was a musician, so I grew up in that same atmosphere.
If they wanted to do music, to go into music, would you encourage that at this point? What would you say to them?
My whole thing is I think my children deserve to be happy. So if making music makes them happy, great. And if they want to do something else, great. It's ultimately their choice. They certainly would have all the opportunities that would be there for them. And as I always like to tell journalists, be careful what you wish for with my family, because if my children go to the music business, it'll be me without all the damage. You know what I mean?
Just one last question before we go. What do you think your loyal fans can expect from this? And what would you say to your newer fans that have, that are experiencing your music for the first time?
I think the real story of Autumn is that a band that was broken into pieces for so many years not only was able to come back together and start playing shows again at a very high level, but to make work that's commensurate with the best work that we made back in the 90s. In essence, we repaired our relationships and went back to what we're supposed to do, which is to make music. As far as young fans go, we're cool with wherever you come in on timeline. We just want to invite you in. We want anybody from anywhere. We don't care where you're from. We don't care your background. We don't care who you love. The Smashing Pumpkins is a band that is about that. And sometimes we're like the land of lost toys, but there are many people in the world that look at pop music and they feel very dispossessed, because people can say whatever they want, but we all know that the aesthetics of pop, there's a lot of pressure there, and they can feel that. They look at people like us. We're not perfect people. We're not perfectly done up. In fact, we're the complete opposite of that. But there's a power in that. It's the idea that anybody, no matter who you are, can come up out of the audience and it can be your stage someday too. That's super powerful. Alternative music is for the rest of the world. It's not about all that. It's about, can you sing, can you dance, can you write the right song that connects with people's hearts? That's it.
Billy, I love that. That's powerful. And thank you so much for letting us into your world with this album. Thank you for your time. Congratulations again. And I hope you enjoyed tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for watching. Did you like that video? You can check out more over here, and don't forget to subscribe to iHeart right here. And if you're already a longtime fan, make sure you ring the bell down below so you don't miss a single video. See you next time.